gentlemen, thank you very much for your flexibility. As CEO, it's your day-to-day business. The topic of tonight is how to scale globally. And I think it's an interesting discussion because we have two different companies, two very interesting French startups, Criteo, that you are going to speak about, and La Ruche Kidiwi, which is a very, very unique business model. And I think we are going to go into some details. The subject of today is very, very important, how to scale globally. Let's assume that you have a great market. And obviously, these two companies have great markets. Let's assume that you have a scalable business model. Then you need to approach, to tackle the next big question, how to scale. And how to scale means how to recruit globally, how to international my staff, how to change my governance. Maybe some words on your two companies to begin with. Let's assume that people know your business model, but can you give us some facts, please, Romain, on Criteo?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So just a few numbers on Criteo. Today, we have about 1,600 employees worldwide. Out of those, 700 are in France. So it's less than half, actually. In terms of business, we should do more than €1 billion of revenues this year. And less than 20% is in France. So the rest is international.
And in terms of HR, what's the biggest country beyond France?
Well, I think it's probably the US, where we have the highest number of employees next.
And let's go into some more details about La Ruche Kidiwi. Sorry,
yes,
but you are not yet that famous as Criteo.
Yeah.
Can you first explain your business, your business model, and where you are in terms of company development?
Yeah. So La Ruche Kidiwi is a company that we launched in September 2011, and the business model is to propose a platform where local farmers can sell their food directly to local communities. And the local communities are each managed by a local host that comes on the platform to set up the community and curate his own local marketplace, making in connection local farmers and local customers. That's how it works. And now we're present in 5 countries: France, Belgium, Germany, the UK, Spain, and Italy.
And what is very interesting is that you are able, and you have found a business model that is very local, yet scalable internationally. When we prepare for the panel, you told me there is something that we both want to emphasize, to stress that first, there is no textbook, and there is no guidebook to scale globally. In fact, what did you mean? How did you, Romain, approach the beginning of the international of Criteo? What were the major steps?
Yeah, sure. So today we have 27 offices in 16 countries, but you have to start somewhere, right? So of course we started the company in France, and until we could prove the model, then we stayed in France. Then the question in 2008 was, where do we go next? So when we try to approach this question, then we look at two things. What are the countries that have the highest business potential? And we try to sort them in a descending order. And also, what are the countries where we need to be to claim the global leadership? And that was the ambition from the start. So for example, in the US, it's a big market, but we also need to be there to be a global leader, right? So that was a mandatory country. We didn't start with the US. We started with countries in Europe. We started with Germany, the UK, Italy. And when we look at what we were told in terms of which countries would be easier than others, it turned out to be quite different, right? For example, we've been told that Germany would be quite difficult, that it takes a long time to establish business relationships, that you can't do anything before 6 months, and it turned out that it was pretty fast. On the contrary, in the UK, that's supposed to be the country you go to then go to the US, and it's the same thing for US companies going to Europe. It was much harder. The reason was that there was a lot of marketing noise in these countries. It was true for the US, it was true for the UK. And so where you're trying to evangelize in some countries, in some other countries that are more mature, you have to differentiate from the crowd, right? So you claim that you have this great technology, and customers say, yeah, I've heard about this, been there, done that. Actually, nothing works, so I don't even want to try with you, right? So different cases. And in terms of model, there's been countries that we opened from a different office, from a remote office. So we started Germany from France, actually, with local sales guys that were running out of Paris. And this model was quite efficient because these guys, they were in an office that was already established. They could benefit from the know-how, the culture, and they could be quite efficient. On other countries, we did a bigger investment, so we created a team locally from the start. And in these cases, in spite of the bigger investment, it was not always as efficient because the team had to ramp up. They had to know the culture, the company. So we could actually solve some of these issues by sending some of the people remotely from other offices. We've done that in the US, we've done that in Japan.
How did you choose between the two approaches?
Sorry?
How did you choose between starting from the headquarters and sending people on the ground?
So there are countries where it's not possible to start remotely, right? If you're too far away. In the US, for example, it was too far. There was too much at stake and it was too difficult to do remotely. So we actually made the decision to send our CEO and co-founder, JB, from 2009. So you just don't have a choice. When the country is close to an existing office, then you actually do have a choice. And so we decided to do it remotely when we could, and it was an opportunistic move to get revenues. The UK, that was close to France, we decided to have a team on site from the beginning because it was a pretty high-stake country, right? But it was not that much more efficient in the end.
Okay. And Marc-David, what is your approach?
Yeah, for us it's very different because we are not only a tech company, we are also a community company. And before getting international, I think the first challenge was for us to get regional. So the first thing we did back in 2013, we started to have teams in 5 cities in France of 4 people that are able to manage the development of the network, the coordination locally. Then from 2013, we launched Belgium from Paris first. It worked directly because it's very close from the French market. And then we decided that we were going to expand, going to neighbor countries. But we quickly realized there was not real borders that you can just pass from France to Germany, and it was really, really different markets with different cultures. So in Germany, at the beginning, we say, okay, maybe we need to find a country manager, someone that knows the startup scene, that is a tech guy. But quickly, what we realized, if we are looking for the traditional country manager for a company, it's not working because we really need to have people that are driven by the mission, and finding this profile of people that have at the same time the qualities of being understanding the startup world and understanding how you build communities has been quite difficult for us, and we are different iterations before finding the good person. And
basically what you are saying, which is very interesting, is that the traditional approach, you take a seasoned local person, didn't work for you. Is that right?
It's not working because people, what they expect is not what you're going to find with our company. Our company is long to set up. You cannot just say, okay, I got the good business model, it's working, we have the playbook, and in 6 months it's going to be set up in the market. For us, it takes much longer time because we need to build the local communities. So we need very specific profiles.
But do you think you found a model by now?
I think,
The type of profiles you need to set up a new country?
I think we found the model. I think we found the good mix we need to have in the teams, the good type of manager. Usually people that started in the tech world, but really want to shift and to have something that is more driven by a long-term mission. So we can find this person right now.
And Romain, if there is, you told us clearly there is not do's, every situation is different. Is there anything that you will advise not to do? A clear don't?
Well, I'd say the first thing is don't auto-limit yourself, right? So we always say that French companies are afraid to go to the US, for example. So if you don't try, you'll never make it, right? So don't put an auto-limit on what you do, and that would be one. A second one is don't think that you can do it without the right investment and right people. Actually, every time it's been difficult in a country for us, it was an execution issue due to the fact we didn't have the right people on site, right? It was nothing wrong with the model. It was the same one everywhere. So it could work the same way everywhere, basically, but we need to have the right people. And in some countries, initially, it's hard to get the top talent because you're not known in the country. US specifically is one of these cases. And so until you iterate and you get to the right team, then you might face execution issues. You might think that's not going to work in this country, but you just have to hang on and get to the right people. Right, so that would be the main one.
And you?
I think we learned something very interesting. It's from our experience in France, we had built a big knowledge about how it's going to work and a lot of material and training and so on. And when we started to go in new markets, we said, okay, let's adapt this material. Everything is ready. We have the experience, but it didn't work because we had to have like the local teams ready to embody their market and the product, and then maybe sometimes to even make their own stuff, their own training material for the community and so on. Otherwise, it's very difficult. So what we realized is like when we started to go abroad, we cannot have the new countries at the same level as the French, as the initial country. And I think it's very important like to remember when you go abroad, like to remember your timeline of what you did to start your market and to restart what you did from the beginning, and not to say like now I'm 3 years old, I know what to do now. It's going to work perfectly this way.
And in terms, you were both pretty successful in scaling up the companies. What about changing the governance? You have more than 50% of your employees that are not French. How did you change the governance? How did you internationalize your exec committee? Was it tough? Did you move people in other countries? Was it a decentralized model? Is it still a centralized model?
And so that's a very important point. You basically have two models, right? You can have all of your executive in the same place, and you get the benefits of having a very integrated team. You can discuss often.
And you did both, I think.
But you're missing out on having the right diversity in your executive team, and it might not be practical. So for us, it was more a distributed model, and basically it just happened automatically when JB moved to the US. Already, like the executive team was not all in the same place, and we just onboarded other executives in the company, top managers, from all the countries that we've been doing business in, little by little. So today, if we look at the top management team at Criteo, you would find people from the US, from the UK, from a bunch of different countries. And I think it's a strength that you managed to do that. The US companies, US startups, they have the advantage of having a big home market. International startups like France, they have to get out of their market quite fast. So if they manage well to get, diverse crowd and diverse managers, I think then they have an advantage moving to different countries because they have onboarded this diversity advantage pretty quickly. That comes with issues though, right? The communication gets harder. So we didn't see it coming, but at some point we realized it was much harder to communicate, have all the informal discussions, hallway discussions, coffee machine discussions. So we had to solve this and recreate ways that we could have these exchanges and face-to-face exchanges. So that means a lot of travel, actually.
And Marc-David, where do you stand on the issue of internationalizing your exec committee?
Yeah. We're still very early, so we didn't internationalize our executive committee yet. We internationalized the operation and decentralized them, and I'm just starting to... Oh! So, yeah.
Please finish.
So, yeah, now I'm just starting to think about... Because I see some challenges. It takes way longer time for us to get international if we don't have, part of the management that is international. So it's one of my next challenges to be able to do this journey, like Criteo, hopefully.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for your insights. Thank you.
C'est chaud, hein, ça,